Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I know some are still trickling in here. We've got quite a large list of registrants, so apparently everyone's interested in UltraEdit and how you can handle really large files with a pretty simple but powerful text editor. So we've got a few folks on the call today. Marco Cantu, our head of PM for UltraEdit. Ben Schwenk, who wears a few different hats. You probably know him if you're from the longtime days of UltraEdit. He's been with the company for a while, and has moved into more of a PM role in supporting development efforts and guiding product. And then myself, GM here at UltraEdit, working with UltraEdit, Embarcadero, and Whole Tomato. And just a note for any of you that have come over from our sister companies, we sent this out to quite a few people just to showcase what great things are going on at UltraEdit. But if you did come over from Embarcadero, this is and the Rad Studio side, this is not an effort to replace any of the tools that are there. This is something we think that could fit right alongside of your Rad Studio development in quickly accessing files and getting some of that lightweight functionality and feature set that is UltraEdit. So I'll let Ben jump in and tell you a little bit more about the product itself. This will be pretty straightforward. I don't know if we've got an intro slide. We can switch to the next slide though, whoever's running those. There we go. Yeah, so we'll just do a quick introduction. There. Oh, no, you can go to that slide. It's fine. So we'll do a quick introduction of UltraEdit. We'll talk about support for large files. We'll look at some of the formats and types of things that you can do with UltraEdit, and then some of the other UltraEdit benefits. We'll tease in a little bit of the other tooling that we have within the UltraEdit portfolio. It's not just the text editor itself. There's a few companion tools that sit nicely alongside of it. But then we'll talk about where we're going, where we are, what we're developing currently, and then where we're going in the future. And so with that, I'll give it over to Ben for introduction of what UltraEdit is. So thanks for your attention here.
Thanks, Kyle. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar. As Kyle said, we're excited to be in front of you and showcase something that we love, which is large files. My name, as mentioned, is Ben Schwenk, and I'm the product manager here at UltraEdit. I started with UltraEdit back in 2006, and so I've been with the company and with the product for a long time. I started just in a customer support role and moved into technical support, and then got more involved in some of the business operations, and then eventually moved over to more of a product focused role. And so I really enjoy working with our products. I really enjoy working with our customers and helping them use our products. And so I'm excited to show you guys a demo of some of our large file handling capabilities today. So quick overview on UltraEdit. What is UltraEdit? Well, you guys know that it is a text editor. We often hear it referred to as the Swiss Army knife of text editors. So it's powerful, flexible, highly configurable editing tool. It has an extensive array of features for almost any editing task that you can imagine. And you think of a Swiss Army knife, it's a handy tool to have, right? It does a lot of things, and it does a lot of things very well. You may not always use all the pieces or all the components of the Swiss Army knife, but you may not use them all at once, but you're very thankful that you have it when you need it. And that's kind of UltraEdit. We see from a lot of our customers that UltraEdit is like just super reliable. It's just something that people would not do without in their tool belt whenever they get some crazy data file or some strange coding language that they need to deal with. UltraEdit as an unopinionated, just kind of straightforward text editor is there and handles the job well. So quick overview of some of the highlights here. we have support for over 500 source languages. I believe out of the box, we have around 20 languages that we support by default, but it's easy enough to add another language. I mean, you can see in the screenshot here that there's the button for adding another language is right there. We have a large repository of highlighting configuration files that is searchable. So some really out there esoteric coding languages we've got, and a lot of those are user contributed, user updated, and we work with our users too to add add new languages as they come in or as they ask for them. So unlimited file size, we'll get to that in a little bit, but there's no limits on the size of file that you can open and work with in UltraEdit. We offer a column or block editing mode. That's a very popular feature, very handy feature. We'll mention that a little bit later. We offer an integrated hex editor. If you don't know what that is, you probably don't have use for it, but when you need a hex editor, you're thankful that you had it. An integrated FTP and SSH client, so being able to remotely connect to servers and pull in data into UltraEdit, do crazy things with it. That's one of our cornerstone features. Many more, we'll cover those a little bit later. Okay, so let's dive into why you guys are all on the call today, and that's large file handling. So to kick this off, I'm going to start by demoing. This says 4 gigabytes, but it's actually 18 gigabytes. So this is an 18 gigabyte XML file that I pulled off of a wiki dump, and I'm just going to show you how simple it is to open this in UltraEdit. I'm just going to drag the file into the editor and it opens immediately. So there's no loading of the file or there's no delay in loading the file. I can open this 18 gigabyte file. I'm searching through the file, going through results here, 20 million lines deep. One of the things I wanted to point out is that while I'm working in the file, UltraEdit is actually parsing it in the background. So there's certain things, components of the application that that run in a background thread, so that you can have access to that file, do what you need to with it. So things like code folding, XML tag matching, all that stuff is going to be happening in a background thread, so that we're not delaying the file load. Additionally, I think we're doing some stuff like parsing line numbers and getting line number counts and line endings and that sort of thing. But it doesn't delay you in working with the file. And that's, again, bread and butter feature of UltraEdit. Throw any file of any size at it, it's going to open it nearly instantaneously. Give me 1 second here to... Okay. So here is the magic formula for our large file handling. As you guys, many of you know, many applications, many editors use temporary files for editing your source. So what that means basically is that when you open a file, your application is going to make a temporary copy of it, temporary location, and when you're editing, all of that editing is going to happen in that temporary file so that you can make changes without altering the file directly on disk. And then once you save those, that temporary file is copied over to the original source location. UltraEdit works the same way, but we have configuration options for working without a temporary file, which is what you see here. So you can actually set a threshold, which is what I've got here. You set a threshold for a file size that files beyond this size, 50 megabytes, are not opened with a temporary file. And so this is going to eliminate the very lengthy copy process that would happen if you opened a huge file like this 18 gigabyte file with a temporary file. So if I have temporary files enabled and I open an 18 gigabyte file, I'm going to be waiting on my operating system to create a copy of that 18 gigabyte file, and now I'm consuming 36 gigabytes of disk space. So not only are these options available, but when you first open that file, the very first time you open a file above this threshold here, UltraEdit's going to prompt you, and it's going to say, hey, if you want to save time, you want to like have high performance, let's turn off temporary files for this file. It gives you the option to do so. And you say yes to that, the file is open immediately. So that's kind of, you know, a big part of the magic formula is disabling temporary files. The other part is our custom edit control. So we don't load the entire file into the edit buffer. A lot of editors, they have limitations because they're loading the entire file into memory. And as you've got memory limitations, or the application has its own internal buffer limitations, you can't go beyond a certain size. We don't do that. We only load a portion of the file into memory. And so that means that you get most of the file immediately. And then, as you saw before, we're parsing it in the background so that we can move that buffer around as needed when you navigate through the file. And then that's the partial file loading, as I just covered. So those are kind of the ingredients for the magic formula for opening these huge files. So, you know, perhaps, you know, you don't even necessarily want to open the file and interact with it. You just want to pull information out based upon a certain string, a certain word, keyword, or pattern like a regular expression. We offer find and replace in files that's very powerful and even more performant. And I have a quick demo here of how to leverage that. Let me make sure the quality is, up the quality a little bit here on this demo. There we go. All right, so here I am opening our Find in Files dialog. And typically you would use this to search through a project, search through a certain type of file, and return results from multiple files. But what I'm going to do here is actually paste in the file name. And this is a 1.5 gigabyte XML file here. I'm going to paste in the file name, and then I'm going to enter my keyword here. I'm going to do the search, and then in real time, UltraEdit is going to parse through that 1.5 gigabyte file and pull in the results, pull in the data. And I think in just a second or two more, it's going to be done. All right, so here we see that the search finished 1.5 gigabyte file in just a few seconds. So if you're looking for an even faster way to pull data from your files, we always recommend giving Find in Files a try. Replacing files as well, if you're actually wanting to modify huge files, do replacements in huge files. Just keep in mind that when you're doing that, it is a permanent operation. There's no undoing a replacement file, so it's good to have backups. I also wanted to show along these lines interactive Find in Files. Now, this is something that we added about 6 to 8 months ago when we released UltraEdit 28.2. And this actually, so what we're going to see here is a similar operation where we're doing Find in Files, but I'm going to check the interactive results option. And what happens here is that UltraEdit is going to search the file first, but it's actually going to load the file itself as the results. And it's going to, as you can see here, it's going to hide all of the lines that aren't matching. So only lines that contain my search string are going to be returned. And the file itself is actually open. So I can scroll down through my results, and I can make changes if I want to. I can delete lines, I can add lines, do whatever I want. And because the file is actually open here, those changes are not permanent. And we're able to do this because we're doing some like black magic stuff on the back end where we are only loading segments of the file. So the entire file is not open at this point. This is a 1.5 gigabyte file, and it's not open at this point, but we have loaded segments of the file into our edit buffer. And then we allow the user to modify them to make changes and then save those changes out directly to disk whenever the user's ready. So this is just one file in this demo, but technically, I mean, the power of this feature is that you could have multiple files that are returned in your interactive search here. And so you can search your source project for a variable name, a function call, whatever, and then get only those lines returned from multiple files, make changes to those lines, save them out to multiple files all at once, all without ever having to open those files directly. So it's a pretty cool feature, very useful, very helpful when you're doing a lot of filtering or mass replacements, that sort of thing, if you don't want to do it without the permanency of replacing files. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the other data formats that we
Ben?
kind of feather in our cap. Yes.
Hi, this is Marco. There's a request that came in that I think is worth addressing. They're asking what is the operating system version and memory of the machine that the demos were built on.
Okay, so this was on my desktop running Windows 10. The amount of memory, I think I have 16 gigs of memory. It might be 8. I could check real quick, but I don't want to mess up the presentation.
No, sure. It's because I think I thought it was a good question to get answered. I mean, right away.
Yeah, and a lot of this will depend on your system resources. Obviously, if you've got like 10,000 browser tabs open and you're compiling in the background, it's not gonna, you're gonna throttle your performance a bit. But this is a pretty good, I would say that this is a fairly common, middle of the road kind of system that these demos are being presented on. All right, so we'll take a look at dealing with JSON in UltraEdit. So I put together a quick demo here of a pretty big JSON file. So we've got like a 25 megabyte JSON file here. You can see UltraEdit opens it immediately, and the problem is that we've got like minified data. But fortunately, we have a pre-print option. As you can see here, we go to the coding tab. In the JSON dropdown, we can reformat, and then immediately we've got a cleaned up, nice, tidy, formatted version of our JSON data, indented with line breaks. Also wanted to show our JSON manager, and this is just a way for you to view your JSON data by node. In a tree style view, you can see your key value pairs there. Double click to navigate. And one of the cool things about the JSON manager is that you can specify one of your keys as an identifier. So then like here, we've just specified the ID key as the identifier. So that's going to be shown now in the JSON manager for all of my JSON nodes. Also supports drag and drop to move nodes around, to move keys and values around. You can see here that I'm doing that directly in the JSON manager. And the source, the corresponding source, is updated as I do that. And then once we're done modifying our JSON, we can recompress it if we need, and it all goes back to a nice minified format. So again, this is I think 20 megabyte JSON file dealing with large amounts of JSON data, no problem. All right, let's take a look at XML. We're going to do
Can we pause for a second, Ben?
Yeah, sure.
There's a question here in the chat around like typical use case. Like, let's see, I'll read the question. What are typical real world use cases for editing such large files? Seems unlikely that people would have 4 gigabyte source code files. So from the surface, I thought the same thing. And then we started looking at sister company, Whole Tomato. We do a lot with game development, and the file sizes there are massive in some cases. Maybe not to this extreme, I think using the extreme example shows how well it would work on a project that is, your everyday project that might not approach 1 gigabyte. But in those cases where you quickly want to use a text editor as opposed to opening up your IDE and going through the full load of that, you might not want to wait that long to just grab, like Ben's example of just searching for a snippet of code that you want to use somewhere else in your IDE. You might not want to open up that file and find it. You might want to just use something like us to go and grab that file, parse through all of that data, and then grab that snippet and pull it out. So, but there are cases. I mean, it's not just because we open everything, and Ben's getting into that. I mean, we've got scientists that use UltraEdit to open DNA strand files that are millions of lines that they want to be able to actually open that up and see what that looks like. But maybe, Ben, you can pepper in some of these use cases as you talk, and that would give people an understanding of kind of how or what this would look like in real world applications. So while 4 gigabyte file might not be the norm, this more so speaks to like, hey, this is how fast you could open up 4 gigs. Think about how fast you could open up 1 gig or less.
Yeah, totally. And I think some other use cases, one common use case that I see is database administrators, sysadmins who have some sort of problem in a database, like a big database, and they want to go directly into the raw source to figure out, where their spurious character is or where the corruption starts or whatever. They fire up UltraEdit. You're not going to be able to do that in your, your database studio or whatever. And so then, searching for characters that are out of range, or going into hex mode and looking for some sort of hex value that's causing a problem. That's a common use case that we see. A lot of research related stuff, like scientific research, where you're dealing with a ton of data, where data needs to be reformatted before it's pulled into some other application. We see a lot of that. A lot of medical type stuff, medical records. I think it's called EDI. We see a lot of large file handling in that arena as well. So it's, it can be esoteric. Most of us aren't going to encounter an 18 gigabyte XML file. That's very true. But, it comes back to the whole idea of the Swiss Army knife. This is just one of the tools of UltraEdit. This is not the whole thing. So it's one of those things where you may not need it for years, but then when you do have a situation where you need to, dive into a huge file for whatever reason, you're glad that you've got it.
Yeah, it's interesting that the question prompted actually a few people on the webinar to not really ask questions, but suggest their own use cases. Someone is saying that they use it for examining data logs, 12 to 15 gigabyte data logs. That's an interesting use case. I think most other editors will just die on it. Another person is saying they use UltraEdit for opening large files, for non-code files. I mean, large files are generally not source code. I mean, you can hardly have like a 20 megabyte single source code file. Right. But for data, transaction files, they're saying find data errors. Like again, on a log, you can just, on a huge log, you can just search for a specific error or any error. And another case that someone mentioned is metadata for legal cases on millions of documents. So I would have thought about it, but that seems also an interesting case. Or the other, which I think is more classic, is doing an SQL dump, making some change to the data and then re-importing into the same or a different database. So these are I think very practical scenarios that people are mentioning in the questions.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Marco, for raising that. All good use cases, and we're always amazed at what people are using UltraEdit for. You think you've thought of it all. Someone emails you and they're like, "Hey, we use this on the Mars rover program or whatever." Like, we've gotten that email. That was pretty cool. So so yeah, real quick, I'll roll through the XML demo here. Very similar to JSON. We're going to open a fairly large XML file and then do a quick reformat here. I'm just showing that we've got we've got everything all on one line. It's compressed. We'll do a reformat going to the coding tab, and in the XML dropdown, all right, so very quickly we've got reformatted and tidied XML. And then we'll show here the XML manager as well, which is very similar to the JSON manager. And we can see all of our XML nodes here. Double click, jump around, drag and drop as well. In the XML manager, you can expand to see, you know, subnodes, attributes, that sort of thing. One of the nice things that I wanted to point out, just a small little nice touch in the XML manager, is the ability to copy the XPath. So here I'm going to copy the XPath of this nested node here, and I'm just going to paste it into a new file. But, you know, it's very handy when you're dealing with XML data and you need the XPath for whatever application you're working on to be able to grab that. And then when you're done with your XML file, you simply recompress it if that's what you need to do, and UltraEdit can handle that for you. Okay, and then we're going to take, as Marco was saying, I actually did put together a demo here of filtering data out of a log file. So what I'm going to show here is using UltraEdit's FTP component to connect to a server. This is just one of the ways that you can pull down files from FTP servers in UltraEdit using the GUI. There are other ways that you can do this as well. You're not just limited to this particular method for connecting to FTP servers, but I'm downloading, I think it's a 200 megabyte, around 200 megabyte server error log file. And what I'm going to do here is I want to filter this file based on the string error. So I've selected that, and then I'm going to click the filter button up here, and I'll let it process for a few seconds. And it's going to hide all of the lines and only show me lines that contain the word error here. So now, as Marco was saying, if I need to, like, you know, get to the bottom of some sort of error, or if I need to, like, look at some sort of IP address in the file, I can use that filter functionality to do it. One other way of doing this, as you'll learn with UltraEdit, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. One other way of doing this is to search for the string and then check this list lines containing string option. This is going to open the find string list, and that is basically every line in the file that contains my search string. From here, I can copy, I can create a new file. Here I'm creating a new file with all of that data. So now I can focus on just those lines, work with just those lines if I need to. So that's another use case for the large file handling in conjunction with FTP. So real quick, we'll go through some of the other Ultra benefits of UltraEdit. Again, it's not just large file handling. That's something we're highlighting today, but we have countless features. Your editor, your way. So we, as I've mentioned before, we're kind of an unopinionated editor. We don't try to force the user into one specific look and feel. You've seen in my demos that I'm using a dark theme. I'm using the ribbon. We know based on user feedback that not everybody likes the ribbon. It's a very polarizing kind of UI. So we give you the option to have your toolbars and your menus, to use a lighter theme if you're not into the dark themes. When you fire UltraEdit up for the first time, you're going to be presented with, you know, the opportunity to set that stuff up if you want toolbars and menus, if you want a more simplified layout, if you want a lighter theme, all of that stuff. And then you can change it at any point. You know, you can right click directly on the toolbar menu or directly on the ribbon to switch to the other UI format. We have one of the best find and replaces in the business. We looked at some of that in some of these demos, but we have regular expression support. We support 3 different types of regular expressions. We have a proprietary syntax. We support Unix style regular expressions and Perl regular expressions. Perl is our more powerful library, more flexible. That's the one we typically direct our users to use, but we do have different options. We've got search and column finding files, replacing files, we touched on that. I could spend an entire webinar going over the functionality and find and replace. As I mentioned before, column mode editing is a big deal for a lot of people, especially when you're dealing with CSV files, fixed width files, that sort of thing. Here I've got a COBOL file open, and you can see just how useful it can be to edit your data in columns as well as rows. A few more here. Here's a screen grab of the hex editor. One of those things that you're thankful you have it when you need it. We also offer multi-caret editing. Here you can see me, I'm just editing an HTML file, inserting tags. Multi-caret editing is, again, very useful. Once you see it, once you start to understand how it works, you wonder how you lived without it. Project support, you've got a development project you're working on, you can throw it into an UltraEdit project, and we have a nifty little feature, IntelliTips, that will offer smart or intelligent code completion suggestions based upon the files, the source files in your project. And hey, it's not a bad coding editor either. So here you can see we've got Markdown file open, and we've got this in live preview so that we can see real-time changes to our Markdown source. We also do this for HTML. And for Markdown, actually, you can change the style that's used to render the Markdown in the preview, and even add your own. So we know a lot of people use UltraEdit for that. Couple bonus benefits. Our security is verified by VSCode, which is one of the like most well-known application security authorities in the world today. And so that means that basically VSCode, with every release that we do of UltraEdit, of UEStudio, of UltraCompare, we submit those to VSCode for first-party code static analysis, and then we get results back on if there are any vulnerabilities, any sort of security risks, and then we're required within 30 days to mitigate those. We work with VSCode on remediation. They provide guidance, and so that is a continual process with every release of our applications. We're maintaining this verification. And it's really part of a three-pillared approach to protecting our customers. We incorporate security as a design and build covenant. So we don't put anything out that's insecure. And then we undertake extreme pressure testing from VSCode to make sure that our stuff is up to snuff, and if it's not, we get it fixed. And then we invest in ongoing security innovations to enhance our continual security effectiveness. So you get that. That's a big deal, especially if you're working with, customer data, sensitive data, a lot of medical stuff, government stuff. Security is very important. Kyle touched on this. We include with UltraEdit, every purchase of UltraEdit, we include UltraCompare Professional. It's a companion application, provides file compare, folder compare, PDF, Word, Excel compare. We also have a level of Git integration. So if you need to resolve Git conflicts, if you want to diff different branches or different commits, that sort of thing, UltraCompare can do it. It also includes folder synchronization, FTP capabilities. You can compare 3 files or folders at a time. You can see here it's got syntax highlighting. And so it's a nifty little tool to have when you want to know what's changed. One of the ways that I use UltraCompare is when I'm editing a file in UltraEdit and something changes that file underneath me, I get a prompt. UltraEdit has file change detection. So I get a prompt that tells me the file's changed. I'm asked if I want to reload it. There's also an option to compare the file on disk with my modified version, my unsaved version in UltraEdit. And if I choose that option, it's gonna open UltraCompare and show me, so I can see exactly what has changed on that file underneath me. But UltraCompare is a little tool to have, and it's got a level of integration with little touches like that with UltraEdit and UEStudio. Really makes it a powerful companion utility. Bonus benefit, dedicated support team at your disposal. Those of you who have been with UltraEdit, you guys know that we are passionate about supporting our customers. I'm sure many of you have communicated with me directly. We like to keep very close contact with our customers, understand their problems, their pain points, and it's not uncommon for us to help our customers in writing a macro to automate some sort of redundant, repetitive editing tasks that they're doing, or help out with a script, or discuss new features, doing remote troubleshooting with the applications. We do all of that. So support is you know, a huge staple, and we consider it part of our product. And so yeah, we always invite our customers to contact us if they need help. There's no going out to forums, there's no going out to Stack Overflow. You can come directly to the product team. Real quick, I'll touch on where we are now and where we are going. So those of you who are using UltraEdit, you saw the 2022 release. That was a huge focus on performance, quality, and user experience. So rather than pumping out a bunch of new features, we took a step back and we took a look at, you know, where it is that our customers, our users are telling us that, you know, they're feeling some pain and they want to see improvement. So we heard, hey, we want a faster startup time. So we took months and months and dove into optimizing and improving our startup routines, some of the things that we're loading on startup to improve that. And that's a continual, you know, that's a continual effort. We're not going to stop here. We're going to continue to pursue that. We improved our macro playback speed by up to 75%. So macros are running much faster. We implemented a bunch of optimizations for column mode, for search, for user tools that improved speed throughout. We had a huge focus on UI. A lot of dialogues were made resizable, including the settings dialog, favorite files dialog. Cleaned up a lot, made things more responsive. The command palette is now resizable. We split out our file view panes, so you can actually look, you can browse your file system in our file view while you've got your project view open as well, and look through your list of favorites. And then we implemented countless other user improvements, suggestions from our user community in ways that we could just make the application better overall. So this was really an effort on making the ease of use, improving the ease of use with our user community, making the application more comfortable for people to use. And so far we've gotten good feedback, and we're pretty satisfied with how this release has gone. UltraEdit 2022.1, this is currently under development, and we're expecting to GA this in July. I'll hit on a couple of high-level things here. Of course, you know, this is all subject to change. I have to throw in that caveat, but this is going to incorporate Microsoft's WebView 2. For those of you who may not know, WebView 2 is the Edge browser component that provides rendering, provides the scripting environment, all of that good stuff. And so where you remember that I showed a few slides back the Markdown demo. That's using a Windows Internet Explorer browser component. So it's like very old, and we've done some stuff to update it and modernize it and make sure that things render properly. But it's an old, unsupported component, and Microsoft is trying to move applications that need a browser control over to WebView 2. And so we're incorporating that into UltraEdit 2022.1. And what that does is it not only updates our browser component, but then it opens the door for some really cool stuff. So for example, we have an integrated scripting environment that runs on an old JavaScript engine. That's going to be fully updated to the latest version of JavaScript or the latest version in Edge which will allow us to modernize our scripting, to improve our scripting. But not only that, we're expecting that is going to give us the platform. It's going to give us a baseline for us to begin to open a plugin system. And so that's something I'll touch on in the next slide, but that's something that we're looking towards over the next few rounds of development, is beginning a plugin system that leverages WebView 2, that leverages JavaScript and all the great stuff that it provides, so that our users can begin to basically write the functionality, the features that they want to see, rather than waiting on us. So we're pretty excited about that development. Also, in the next release, we're going to expand the command palette to include the ability to insert templates, the ability to quickly jump to a line, a column, or a bookmark. And then these last two, quick open recent file or quick open file on disk with autocomplete. I got to tell you guys, that doesn't look like much, but I've been using this. I've been using like some alpha builds of what we're doing here, and it is so nice to be able to just open the command palette, Control-Shift-P, begin typing a file name that I know that I need. I know that I opened, a couple days ago or whatever, and I kind of remember the name of it or whatever. I begin typing it and then have it pulled up out of my history. Is just a game changer. Saves me a ton of time. I don't think I'll be using the recent files or the file open dialog much more after that. We're also revamping our syntax parser for code highlighting. So what that does is that's basically extracting or abstracting away from the editor all of the syntax highlighting. And so we're able now to implement highlighting for things like regular expressions in code and here docs and now docs and that sort of thing. And this item alone has addressed like a huge number of syntax highlighting issues from the backlog. And so syntax highlighting is going to be remarkably improved in 2022.1. We're also updating HTML tidy. It's a huge upgrade there with a ton of more options. I mean, obviously still, if you use HTML tidy, it still has the basic, parsing for HTML cleanup and that sort of thing. But the granularity of the options and the reformatting is like never before. We've also implemented two-factor authentication for SFTP. We hear from a lot of our corporate users or people that are in more locked down environments that they can't connect to their FTP servers without having the ability to enter, their 2FA code or whatever. And so this is going to enable people in those environments to be able to do that. And then there's a lot more planned. I'm not going to go over it all, but these are just some of the highlights. And then we also do have Mac and Linux updates planned for later this year. We're still working on those projects, still discussing, what functionality we're going to bring over and install in this next update. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure we'll have some communications going out about that here soon. So beyond this, I just wanted to give you guys some general ideas of what we're looking at. As it says, we don't publish official roadmaps, but these are a few of the items that we're evaluating. As I mentioned before, we're continually focused on performance. UltraEdit's a pretty mature product. There's not much that it's missing in terms of editing. So, the question really becomes, how do we make a mature product better? And it's not by turning it into a feature factory or just churning out new features. We understand that we've got to make our existing functionality top-notch, robust, performant. It's got to be full quality. So that's always going to be a priority of ours. As I mentioned with WebView 2, we're going to be looking at developing a plugin system. We're looking at improving our macro system, doing a complete overhaul on the UI for creating, saving, playing macros, loading macros. One of the things we're talking about are settings templates. We've heard from some of our corporate users that they want to deploy a set of pre-configured settings for UltraEdit with certain defaults maybe they want to lock down some things in the editor. They want to lock down some settings because for whatever reason in their environment, they need that particular feature locked out for security purposes. So we're looking at implementing something there for our corporate users. LSP AI code completion, that may be a sub item of the plugin system. We still got some research and development to do there, but that is on our radar. More extensive text formatting and data filtering tools. We see in our surveys that a lot of people use UltraEdit for just working with raw data and filtering, kind of like in the demos that I did, reformatting things and switching columns around and that sort of thing. So we really want to focus on how we can continue to support and innovate in that area. All right, I think that wraps it up for my presentation. And now I'd like to open it up for any questions that we've had. Marco, if there's anything in the chat, if you've been monitoring that, or Tristan, please let me know. Be happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I'll just start. This is Kyle. I'll start with a couple of the questions that came up around licensing and cost. So one question that came up is, are we discontinuing perpetual licensing? No, we're not. We need to make some cleanup on our website to reflect that. Previous leadership before purchase had essentially made the decision to move away from perpetual licenses, but they were doing so in a softer approach by essentially guiding you. If you go and you click buy, the first thing you see is a subscription offering, which is like a lot of people like that. But we know that once we started looking at the data, we started looking at our customer base, who purchases and how they purchase. We said, well, it seems like everybody wants choice. And so we decided to stop the movement to shift everyone to subscription. Of course, subscription is there and available, and if you want to use that, and if that makes the most sense to you, it is effectively cheaper, especially when you look at All Access, which gives you all of our suites of tools at a flat annual rate. So that's available. The cost on that for All Access is $99 a year. So we're talking, minimal amount for a ton of features and a ton of tools. We also offer it as a subscription. So just like Ben mentioned, UltraEdit and UltraCompare together at $79 annually on a subscription plan. But then if you're within our website, we'll be making some changes in the coming months on this. But if you're on our website and you look around at more purchase options, that will show you our full catalog and kind of different flavors and ways you can purchase. That will be a perpetual license that you can buy that includes 1 year of maintenance. The unique thing about that, and one of the changes we made was instead of a lot of purchasers, a lot of customers would buy, maybe they bought in 2010 and bought a perpetual license. They didn't buy any maintenance with it, so they only got the upgrade or the update that happened within that calendar year, or within that I guess the next several months, whatever the next update was. And then if they wanted to take advantage of the version that came out in 2012, they would have to buy a new perpetual license. And so we said, well, that's kind of not a fun experience for users. So let's just add a maintenance component that customers can renew. So if you want to, continue your maintenance and keep getting updates, you can at a lesser cost, maintain the perpetual license. And if you decide that, hey, I'm not really taking advantage of these updates and I don't want to pay for the maintenance, you don't have to in the second and third year. And you can come back at any time and join us again. So it just kind of keeps things a little bit more simplified, but at the same time gives you the choice to decide, I want perpetual license, or hey, actually, I really just want a subscription license, or I'm working with a new company and they buy everything in subscription license. They want to have everything be a flat fee and not have to worry about big spikes and when they add licenses and that kind of thing. So anyway, those options are all there. If you have any other questions about that, you can contact me directly, sales@ultraedit.com as well. We tend to, with larger enterprise type customers, dealing with corporations, we work more hands-on and not through the shopping cart. But shopping cart options are available for any personal license and smaller quantities of licenses as well. So keep that in mind.
Yep.
Marco, Tristan, any other questions, product related that we want to call out? Really, thank you all for these questions and comments really about your use case. So.
Yeah, there's a person. There's been a few questions. Actually, they were asked before your final tidbit about availability of the new features of UltraEdit for other platforms, specifically macOS. But a person also asked about Linux, and what's the plan for bringing up some parity in the different platforms.
Yeah, so we definitely have development time scheduled for Mac and for Linux for feature parity, bringing things up to speed there. We know we have a ways to go. I mean, we've acknowledged that. We'll acknowledge that in our emails, but we're committed to doing that. And so I don't know that I can give too much information yet because we still have to finalize some things, get approval on some things, but we are committed to that, and we will have future communications around that, in the coming month or two. Sorry, I know that's a very, very nebulous answer, but we'll have more information for sure.
Another note on licenses. Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
Just to so some changes that we did make over the last 6 months or so. Obviously, this is a recent kind of move into IDEA management. Working with the Embarcadero team, etc. We did discontinue, or we're in the process of discontinuing, the lifetime maintenance purchases. That was something that you could purchase essentially a perpetual license at a pretty high rate, and then take advantage of updates and maintenance, software maintenance forever. We are discontinuing that. That's just a practice that the IDEA company wants to get away from. But we are offering, if you have that type of license right now, we're allowing you to add licenses to that. You'll just need to reach out to us directly for that ability to add licenses there. Another thing that we offered prior to acquisition was the upgrade license type, essentially giving you the ability to take an old license, from any year essentially, and receive a discount on a new license. Because we're adding this maintenance plan option, that maintenance plan essentially is that same discounted rate, but for our I'll say powers that be, if you're in the corporate world, you know what that means. We want to get away from having these kind of the ability to come back in at a steep discount without purchasing maintenance initially. So the maintenance plans kind of cover that scenario. But we are offering through the end of this month, if you have an old version and want to take advantage of the upgrades and get onto a new license type with the maintenance plan, or move to subscription, we're still offering discounts there. So
yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead, Marco.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, there's a question that came up that I partially want to answer from my perspective as the person who's more focused on RUStudio than UltraEdit. So the question is, does it if UltraEdit competes with Visual Studio or Eclipse? I would say no. I mean, Visual Studio, Eclipse, and so also RUStudio are really focused on developers who need to edit source code files, do debugging session, get tooling for deploying on, I don't know, we in RUStudio deploy on Android and iOS directly from the IDE. So the integrated development environment has features that go in different directions compared to being an editor. Now, my take, and I could be wrong because I have limited experience, is that UltraEdit is an editor. And so it lets you edit anything, source code files, of course, but also any other format. And it does it so nicely in terms of performance, in terms of stability, in terms of being snappy and being there. And so to my take and the thing I like, and the way I'm personally using it is as a side editor that is great whenever I don't need to start working for a lot of time on the project, building, compile it, debug it, and work on the entire on the entire project. But whenever I'm looking for something, I find a file on my hard drive, I need a quick look at it, opening that source code file, even a Delphi Pascal source code file or a C++ one in UltraEdit is faster than opening in RUStudio. And then in RUStudio, I might have like another project open. So it kind of gets in my way of what I'm doing, because I'm using that for one specific task. And yes, I can open another file. It will not conflict, but still, I like the separation of just popping it up in an editor, look at it, read some things, maybe copy 3 lines of code that I need elsewhere and paste them over. So I find that a very common scenario. And then, of course, files that tools like Visual Studio, RUStudio handle, but they don't handle that well, which is like XML or JSON or other format. Because these editors tend to, for example, start parsing them and making like a visual representation, doing things that are very heavy when the files are big. So yeah, they can manage those files, but they're generally not the best tools. I mean, and not as fast as and efficient as UltraEdit. So to me, for developers, an editor like this is really a companion to your IDE. It's not a replacement of your IDE. Now, of course, for people who don't not focus on software development, that's a different story. But if I look at that angle, I can clearly see that significant difference.
Yep, definitely. I just want to do
now there was sorry.
I was just going to run through a couple of these questions real quick, maybe some of the technical questions. Go ahead, Marco, though. Why don't you finish your thought?
Yeah, no. Actually, I want to point out one question which I kind of answered, but my answer was limited, which was, what's the difference between UltraEdit and UltraEdit Studio?
UEStudio.
So what's the plus into the Studio version?
Yeah, so with UEStudio, we do have some, we have Git integration with that. So, it allows management of your Git repositories and commits and pulls and pushes from directly within the editor. It's got some advanced project features and some integrated compiling and debugging tools. It doesn't have a compiler, but it's got capabilities for compiling, launching compilers, and that sort of thing. Various configurations for a lot of maybe some of the more classic compilers, and some other tooling, some other script tooling for syntax checking and PHP, Python files, that sort of thing. So maybe just like a greater depth of features in terms of coding and project development, that sort of thing. Morbin Time asks, can you use UE to filter and generate a result file from command line, for example? First, let's acknowledge the hat tip to one of the greatest movies of all time, Morbius. So the answer to that is yes, you can do that by running you can call a macro or a script from the command line. So there is a level of manual setup there where you would create your macro or your script and then run that from the command line. It could run silently and produce a result file.
I'm curious if there is a code file available for DBase language. This really reminds me of when I was young doing DBase.
I had to go look. That looks familiar, but if there's not, I bet I could get you one in about an hour. It's really easy to set up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the name of the person who asked, but yeah, I was curious about it.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I'll check that out. Any tools to automatically export either search or compare results to a file or database directly from MS Access? I don't think so. James, maybe I don't understand the question fully, but there's no direct integration with MS Access. You need to extract the data into a separate file somehow. ANZ837 wish there was more features for ANSI. So basically, the code page support that you see in UltraEdit is derived from the operating system. So we query Windows to see what code pages are available, and we offer whatever Windows offers. So actually, just earlier this week, we were working with a user who's using a Hebrew code page that I didn't have on my English system, but one of my coworkers installed the Hebrew version of Windows, and then he had it and was able to support the user. Thanks for the suggestion on regex and macros. We do have a macro video on our YouTube page. If you head over to youtube.com/UltraEdit, you'll see our video library. I've recorded pretty much all of those, and we'll continue to do that. So there is some good resource there for understanding, like taking a deeper dive into some of these features that we covered. Chris, I apologize on the screen captures and recordings if those weren't clear. We can make those available separately. Maybe I'll speak with our team here, our marketing team here, on making those demos available separately so that you can see them. I recorded them on my UHD screen, but I'm not sure how it came through the webinar. So if it was not clear, my apologies. So yeah, regarding the acquisition, I mean, we've kind of already covered this in previous communications, but nothing has changed with UltraEdit. We still have the full team running the show here. We just have the management and oversight of Kyle and his team, and they're absolutely awesome. There are no plans to change anything as far as I'm aware. UltraEdit is still UltraEdit. It's still being developed and supported by the same people. And so I hope that eases some of your discomfort.
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, Ben and the team are awesome, right out of the gate. And generally, I would say that, status quo isn't a good thing. But when the product is good and the team is good, then status quo is good. So we're just going to keep doing what the team has been doing. The only, the real changes are in executive leadership in terms of people that left, the founder and then the I can't think of Rich's title. Anyway, basically revenue officer. They exited, and that was planned. That was part of what they wanted. So now it's on to putting resources and more development behind Ben and his team.
Yep. Sandro asked on adding a new programming language. Hit the coding tab up, and there's an add another language button right there on the left, and you can search our repository directly. UEStudio does have all of the latest features from UltraEdit. So we typically release UltraEdit, and then within a week we also release UEStudio. So those are typically released, around at approximately the same time. A recommendation for end user training for UltraEdit and UltraCompare. I mentioned it before, but I would definitely hit up our video library on YouTube. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great content there, and we'll continue to add to that. You can also email us directly if you have a specific question. We also have a wiki online that repackages our help documentation in a more accessible, digestible format. Jim Fleece asked about private public key authentication for SFTP. We already support that. There's an option in the FTP settings to provide a private key. So that should be working for you.
All right. We are a little bit over time here. I want to be,
Oh, wow.
respectful of you guys' time. We can follow up directly if you guys have any other questions. You feel free to email any of us. Support is going to be your best resource. But if there's specific questions on the heels of this webinar, feel free to reach out to any of us here. And we'll be following up with the webinar links as well. And then, yeah, hopefully we can get marketing to get these videos, the demos into higher qualities and send those out. But thank you all for your attention here. And yeah, thanks, Ben and Marco. You guys, Ben, you're a rock star. Really appreciate the depth that you went here today, and hope everyone else appreciated it as well. So thanks, everyone.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.